So farming as a solo player in the Division 2 can seem like a lot of work, especially if you've been farming for several hours only to end up with loot that has terrible attribute rolls. And this is mainly because in the Division, the loot system has an RNG algorithm that randomly determines what loot you get, or so it seems that way. But it can get super frustrating farming for long periods of time and not getting what you need, or getting it to finally drop for you only to have the wrong attribute rolls. But with that being said, there are a few things that you can do to improve the quality of your loot drops, as well as increase your odds of getting a maxed out mod. And in today's video, I'm going to show you guys what those are. So let's get into it. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have a spicy topic. So what are some fast ways to farm for maxed out mods as a beginner or returning solo player? Because you have so many options to choose from that it can get overwhelming. Well, if you're farming for gear mods as a beginner, it helps knowing that there are 3 different types of gear mods. So offensive, defensive, and utility for skill. And unlike gear pieces and weapons, gear mods can't be optimized, unfortunately. However, you're still able to target farm them, just not for a specific type. So it's basically up to RNG to decide what color mod you get, as well as the percentage value. So it really just boils down to luck if you think about it. And since that's the case, a better question may be, how can we increase our chances of getting a max mod drop? Well, as many of you guys know, in the Division 2, the quality of your loot drops is based upon the difficulty of the content you're running. So basically, the higher the difficulty, the greater the rewards, but truth be told, you can still technically get a god roll drop on any difficulty, but again, higher difficulty content always equates to better quality loot. Now I'm going to show you guys a very effective way to do this that's worked extremely well for me in the past, and I'm also going to show you what you can do to increase the amount of loot drops you get. So the best place to farm for god roll pieces, in my opinion, is the summit. And what we're gonna do is set our targeted loot to gear mods. But if you need skill mods, this will work for that as well. Now remember, since we can only target gear mods rather than targeting a specific type, it becomes up to RNG to determine which type will drop as well as the amount. So in that case, what we wanna do is increase our chances of getting a max mod roll. And to do that, we will be doing this on Legendary. Now, don't freak out because you can do this on whatever difficulty you'd like, honestly. You don't necessarily have to do this on Legendary, but again, the higher the difficulty, the greater the reward. But to be honest, Legendary Summit is much easier compared to the Strongholds. It's really not that difficult if you have a good setup. And besides, with the build that I'm going to use for this, it makes it that much easier. But if anyone's interested, I'll do a breakdown for this setup towards the end of the video. But this is one of the builds I'll be using for this farm. But you can also use a DPS build if skill builds aren't your style. So this is a 4-piece striker setup with the St. Elmo's engine. But I'll showcase this setup towards the end of the video as well. So again, this will work on any difficulty, but if you can handle it, I would do this on Legendary if I were you, just to maximize your chances for a max mod drop. But if it's too much for you to handle, then just try heroic or challenging, whichever you're comfortable with. Because in this next step, I'm going to show you what you can do to improve your chances even at a lower difficulty. Now, the next thing we're going to do is increase the amount of targeted loot drops that we can get by adding some directives. And the more directives you add, the higher the chance of you getting more targeted loot drops. So just add as many directives as you can handle. If you plan on using a regular DPS build, then you can go with Fog of War, Ragers, and Special Ammo. But with the skill build I'm running for this, I can add up to 5 for Legendary and 7 if I'm doing this on Heroic. And that's because I never really have to fire my weapon. So this gives me the opportunity to use directives such as, ammo hoarders and pistolero. Also, since this is a refactor build, I get armor heals based on the percentage of my skill damage thanks to the gear set talent. So this allows me to have both the no regen and hard to earn directives as well. But what you can do is set the difficulty to heroic or challenging if legendary is too much for you to handle, and just add more directives. So at least that way you're getting extra loot drops, so it balances things out, so to speak, right? but this is also a great way to farm XP. So what we're going to be doing is farming 3 bosses on floor 90 at the summit. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this method, but I'll briefly explain it for anyone new. It's very simple. Now, if you don't have the floor 90 checkpoint, not a problem at all because you still get a named boss on every 10th floor. So floor 20, 30, 40, and so on. But you can toggle the threat scaling option in the menu and actually have a look for yourself. So you can see here, floor 90 is the only floor that spawns 3 bosses. But anyway, once you start it up, you're gonna need to, first of all, clear the area because there will be an initial wave of enemies. Then once you've cleared the area, another 3 waves of enemies should spawn, and each wave will include a named enemy. Then once the 3rd wave spawns, eliminate the 3rd boss and be careful not to clear the floor completely or else you'll lose the floor 90 checkpoint. So what you can do is keep a few NPCs alive, and after you eliminate the boss, just grab your loot and return to the lobby. Then from here, you can just rinse and repeat, but this is also a great way to get other exotic weapons like the Bighorn, St. Elmo's Engine, or the Capacitor. Basically any exotic that's in the general loot pool. Now you can also farm for max mods in Countdown as well, since you can also change your targeted loot. However, in my honest opinion, I think the floor 90 summit farm is way more efficient for farming max mods. So as far as the skill build setup goes for the floor 90 farm, if you don't mind using a skill build, you have the benefit of adding a few more directives. Plus, with the way this build is set up, your skills are doing most of the work and you can really just sit back and not have to do much. Not to mention, the healing coming from the refactor gear set is also super convenient and allows you to add even more directives. So I'm able to have up to 7 with this setup, which is pretty crazy. Now, since this is a skill damage build and most of the damage will be coming from the turret and striker drone, ideally you want to have skill damage and skill haste as the attribute on all of your pieces, okay? Actually only for the Hana-Yu pieces, but for the gear set pieces, you want to go with skill damage since you can only have 1 attribute on gear sets. Skill damage will be more beneficial than skill haste. So for the gear talent, since this is the named backpack, it comes with a perfect talent. So with the force multiplier named bag, you get the perfect combined arms talent, which increases your skill damage by 30% for 3 seconds. There's no cooldown on this, so you can use your sidearm and just keep this buff active if you'd like. And for the skills, the striker drone and turret. And for the sidearm, I'm using the named pistol that comes with the technician weapon specialization. So this gun comes with the perfect spiked talent, and this talent basically grants 25% skill damage for 15 seconds upon landing a headshot. It's a great addition to this setup, but it's optional. Now, as far as the DPS build goes, I have it set up for mid to long range since this is my preferred playstyle. So I went with the fortified smart cover variant to add immunity from the staggering, because as many of you guys know, the drone operators on Legendary like to spam UAV drones, so it helps with that. So this is a 4-piece striker build with Fenris and Gilligard. I went with Fenris for the extra AR damage and Gilligard for the bonus armor. Then for the talents, Obliterate for the vest and Bloodsucker for the backpack. But as far as the attributes on gear pieces, you want to go with either critical hit chance or critical hit damage. And for the primary weapon, I'm using the St. Elmo's Engine because again, I prefer playing mid to long range. But anyway guys, this is Prajna. That'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you guys have any questions, you already know what to do. Leave them for me in the comment section. Also, if anyone's interested, I do have a Discord server. So if anyone needs help with anything in-game related, or if you have any questions, you're welcome to join. A link will be in the description. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and see you in the next video. Bye!